Hello everyone, Corrupted here and welcome to a new video. Today we're going to be talking about how you analyze an officer and how you build your own officer setups. Like, it's very common knowledge what the best officer combos are. For example, on Heli, if you exclude Professor Payne, we have Valkyrie and Golden Eagle. That's the best duo out there. There's no debate on that, at least for damage output. But it's about not everyone has this officer awakened yet or available maybe in a server, and how you can look with what officers have upgraded at this moment in time and what can I use right now. And maybe if you have two helicopters, you can't run Valkyrie and Golden Eagle on both, for example. So how do you look at officers and say, look, I want these officers on these units, and how do I analyze them, how do I make combos for units? That's what we're going to be talking about today. So first we're going to be analyzing 4 different officers. I picked those 4 because I think they have a rounded set of skills that describe basically every officer skill that's out there. Every different type at least. So we're gonna start with Golden Eagle here. Well, Golden Eagle, he's a very strong officer added to the game. Well, we're gonna look at the skills. What's his first skill? 1500 skill damage and 80 skill damage extra for every 100 millimeters of armor. Well, what does this do? This means he's good against highly armored units. So that's mainly MBT and super heavy tanks. Those are the units in the game with the highest armor, so he's going to be best against those. That is also why he's recommended on Heli, because your main targets are going to be MBTs and super heavies with the Heli. His second skills, also again damage to tanks and helicopters is also placed again against dense armored units and mainly heavy armor. And for critical strike, this isn't really suited to any particular unit. And damage resist for the unit itself, also not geared towards any particular unit, but also a nice buff here, base defense damage resist, which so the base takes less damage when he's garrisoned. And then we can see here is passive skill, 20 extra percent damage with normal attacks and ignores 10% of the enemy's damage resist, up to 15% damage resist. This also again, it isn't really geared towards any particular unit, but it does really help. It's a very nice skill to have. Yeah, so he's the first officer, as we can see from these, mainly the first and second skill. He's mainly against tanks and MBT and super heavy in particular. Second officer we're going to look at is Berserker Bear. He's an artillery officer, and again we're going to look at the skills. Max out to have 1500 skill damage again. That's good. That's the number you're looking for. 1500 or higher with the 180 they do plus officers and the 300 they plus officers, and 25% blast damage resist. What does this imply? That 25% blast damage resist is mainly gonna be strong against personnel units. And what are personnel units? That is either artillery or infantry. Those take much more blast. Those units blast damage has much more effect on tanks. So he's gonna be good officer on an artillery that is again mainly against other artillery and tanks and infantry. Sorry. Then we're gonna look at second skill. HP of officer's artillery 30%. So then we're gonna see here officer artillery, but firepower increased by 10% and 5% extra if it's on a rocket launcher. So that's one of the specific types of artillery. This again, the rocket launcher is a very strong unit against either artillery or infantry. It does a lot of damage to those. It also is still effective against tanks, but just a lot less. It's yeah. And then here, whenever your troop kills an enemy unit, it has 10% chance to score the skill prep time by 1%. Game triggered 1 time every 8 seconds. Well, what is this? This is also more effective when you are against units that are easier killed. So, for example, infantry, a full train of infantry is 102 units, meaning there's much more to kill, and there's a much greater chance of getting this kill with infantry or even something like a howitzer, rocket launcher, or yeah, a light tank even. Light tanks also have a lot of units, but the light tanks isn't a good target for the rocket launcher. Why is that? The light tank's really fast, the rocket launcher is really weak. So yeah, that's not going to be a great time for you. And the same as if you put on a howitzer, the light tank is going to do a lot of damage to you. So, what you can deduce from him, he's mainly good on a rocket launcher that you use for either against infantry or howitzers. Then the next officer we're going to look at is Lady Justice. The first skill, 1500 skill damage again, that's very good. And then reducing her target speed by 50% for 6 seconds. And increases her troops damage and speed by 15% for 6 seconds. So, she's mainly good, like once you have one skill fires nurse, with the next 6 seconds, they're not really gonna be able to get away from you, since you're gonna have a 15% speed boost and they're gonna be 50% slower. That's pretty big. Meaning you can fire a lot more shots at her and they can't run away from you. The second skill, firepower of the officer's troop by 30% increase firepower 5% while in your alliance active territory. Maybe she's a bit more defensive, but 5% difference isn't really that big, so she really works anywhere. 15% chance of landing a critical strike. Also a very nice skill, again, not really particularly towards any unit. And then increase the damage of this troop's officer by 20%. Also, well-rounded skill, important every unit, although damage is a bit more important on tanks and infantry, since they are units that are supposed to be able to take damage, whereas artillery really isn't. Yeah, it's a Reagan skill that buffs her first skill. So what can we use for this? She's good on units where you're going to be hunting other units that mainly going to try to run away from you. So that's good on, for example, a light tank, a helicopter, or even MBT. She's very good on those units. Also, not just because of that, but she does general very good damage. So yeah, she's going to be good on a light tank, an MBT, a helicopter, or even infantry if you want a few people to run that. Yeah, infantry is not as fast as the others, so you're going to be struggling a little bit for the speed buff, so it might not be ideal for that, but it can definitely work on there. Then the last officer we're going to look at is Valkyrie. He's a very good officer on tanks. Yeah, she's a tank officer, deals 1500% damage 1500 damage coefficient, and the troops damage for 15% by 4 seconds. Now this is not geared towards any particular type of tanks, but the damage dealing tanks, so that's mainly the MBT and the helicopter is going to be more important on this light tank as well. The super heavy isn't as much focused against killing other units, more for taking damage from bases. So the next skill increases firepower of officers' tank and helicopters by 20% and their speed by 5%. This again is targeted more towards the light, the heli and the MBT, and not so much a super heavy. Super heavy, the speed is already very slow, 5% isn't really going to do much for you. Whenever this officer's tank or helicopter troop attacks an enemy ground force troop, he has the chance is 40% to inflict surrendered armor. Reducing the target damage resistance by 20% for 4 seconds. It's a very strong skill, and what this helps with is when you're fighting in army groups, because this doesn't only affect the 20% damage resistance less for the enemy. It's not only for your unit, but also for the other units that are attacking it. And especially if there's units of other Valkyries, you're gonna get this 200% skill damage coefficient when it's already on there, and gonna do a lot of damage. And it's basically going to constantly have 20% less damage resistance, which is massive. And then the final skill reduces officer's troop the damage of increase the damage of the officer's troop by 15%. If the officer's tank or helicopter, increases load time by 5%. Meaning she is mainly geared towards the helicopter here. That's what she would be the best on, but also works very well on a light tank or MBT. I think she's still one of the best, strongest officers on there. Alright, so those were the 4 officers we looked at, and what we can see here is they all have a different thing. So, Golden Eagle, as we saw, is very good if you are solo on a helicopter hunting, or even like just don't have a better option. Like Lady Justice is also a very good option, but you're just gonna get that armor. He's very strong against the heavy armor units, meaning he's gonna be good in a helicopter. And BT is good as well, but I don't think personally he is as good as Lady Justice there. I think she's personally a bit better, but that's also a matter of taste. You're gonna get a bit more damage from Golden Eagle, but yeah, she's gonna have that slow and that speed boost, which I think is a pretty major thing. Then, yeah, Valkyrie, as we saw, just good in groups, and because of her skill, that also affects all other units around her that she's fighting with, all allied units basically. And there are a few more officers like this, and then Berserker Bear is mainly, we saw that officers can be good against a certain type of unit. So they're mainly meant to counter one thing. Now, then we are gonna talk about different units and what kind of pairings they favor. So we're gonna go through the manual for a bit, and we're gonna talk about the units. Alright, so first unit, infantry. Infantry officers are a bit rare. They're mainly used to either tank bases or counter tanks. So what you're gonna want is something that favors those things. So if you're gonna want tank damage, you're gonna want Angel of Light. She's the only real healing officer on there for infantry. The others that do durability are all made for tanks. So the Angel of Light would be the best option there. And then you're gonna need at least one damage officer. There are a few options out there, but something like Golden Eagle or something like that, you get damage against tanks. If you're countering tank, that's very good. Something like an infantry specific officer like Iron Bastion, we know we can see he's better against bases. So it's either that. It depends on what you're going to use this unit for, what the officers you pick. Well, then the second is main battle tanks. Again, you can choose a wide array of officers. If you're fighting in groups, I would recommend uh, two damage officers. If you're fighting solo, either 2 damage and 1 durability, or 2 damage or 1 damage, 1 durability. Or even if you're tanking base, sometimes it may be favorable to just go ahead and use 2 durability officers if you want to. Then helicopters, generally just go with 2 damage officers here, depending on what you're doing. I would either recommend either Valkyrie, Golden Eagle, or Lady Justice. Either of those 3, depending on what you want to do with it, is going to be the best option there. For rocket launchers, artillery officers, you need kind of the one range. So you want to take something like Lady Liberté or Antonina on there, and then an officer depending for what you're doing. Maybe if you're mainly going to target artillery and infantry, you're going to go maybe with Berserker Bear. You're going to target tanks. You maybe going to go with something like Argent Flame, or maybe even Gold Eagle again. As we saw, he's very good against armor. Yeah, and then next units, Howitzer. Usually again, you're going to take Howitzer officers on there. Most people do want to use Antonina on there or Lady Liberté so they can get 5 range out of it, but there are definitely other solid options out there. Damage officers, look at what you're mainly going to use it for, and then look at officers and what officers fit that playstyle for you. Then there is one unit here, the light tank. Light tanks usually ask for officers that have high speed. As you can see, they're the fastest unit in the game. So they are officers with speed buffs that slow enemies down, so you can kind of get them in your class and they can't get away from you. And then the final 2 units, the super heavy tank. Well, what it's mainly used for is mainly used for tanking base. You're gonna want durability officers on there, like someone like Steel Fighter, Thorn, or even a Spanner if you're more early game. And then the final unit, the anti-tank gun. This unit is mainly used for killing heavy armored units, so something like Golden Eagle works very well on there, or even a general artillery officer like Antonina for the extra, so you can get 4 range if you want to use it on the field. Yeah, or maybe even a Lady Justice you can put on there if you don't want them to run away from you, or an Argent Flame. He's also very good, so you can do damage to multiple units with his skills. So as you can see, like, there's not always one best officer pairing. For the ultimate damage output, yes, there's always going to be one best. We can always quantify that. But there's also speed and other things that play into and the scenario you're fighting in, what units you're fighting, and a lot of other things that play into it. So pick your officer pairings wisely. Yeah, have fun playing the game. In the Discord there will be a in the link there. So sorry, in the description there will be a link to a Discord that I am in. A lot of other content creators are in. Yeah, so if you have questions, feel free to ask people there. Yeah, good luck playing and have fun. Goodbye.